What images spring to mind when you think of this world? How do you feel when you think of this world? How did we end up with this world? Do you think this is the best of all possible worlds? And what kind of world do you wish to live in? Hello everyone, and welcome to English for a Better and Humane World. In this video, I want to explore what's wrong with this world and how we got here in order to see what we can do to build a better world. So let's dive in. A better world. Let's begin by looking at these pictures. And what stories do you think these pictures tell? Stories about our world. Well, in this lesson, we will look at a better world. What is a better world like? We will also learn to talk about our hopes and dreams by using future plans. And finally, we will look at Ubuntu and compare Ubuntu with what we have today. Winner takes all. Let's begin by asking a few people about what they think is wrong with this world. So, Rasta, why are people so cruel, selfish, greedy, and arrogant, and only care about themselves or how much money they have? Why do we wage war on other nations? Why do we cut down forests for profit? Why do we kill animals for game? Why there are homeless people and nobody cares about them? Well, I think you can also add your own questions to this list of horrors, right? How about you, Safa? What's wrong with this world? It's depressing to see what's going on in the world today. Almost everywhere you look, you see the signs of a world gone mad. Inhuman poverty and inequality, wanton violence and destruction, mind-numbing crime, trivialization, apathy, indifference, dehumanization, and so on. The main cause is capitalism, and the solution is a global revolution to build a better world. I couldn't agree more with this one. And if you look at the picture, you know what's happening these days. War everywhere. James, what's wrong with this world? What you're asking for is a world in which everyone is the same, and that simply is impossible. Everyone is different and have their own ideas on goals. Some are good and some are bad. The simple answer to this question is that's life. And I couldn't disagree more with you, James, because that's not life in general. That's a specific form of life. Ziva, what's wrong with this world? Junk food, capitalism, and religious intolerance have led us to want petty material things we don't need and idolize people and places that are not special. We are too lazy to think for ourselves. We let the media manipulate our brain, our opinions. And we want much, too much. That is greed in an unjustified way. So guys, whose views do you agree with and whose views do you disagree with? Points to ponder. Let's think deeply about these interesting quotes about our world. A different world cannot be built by indifferent people, and this is obviously true, because if you care, you will do something to make this world a better place. But if you don't care, obviously you will not step up to make it a better place. And Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. Yeah, what kind of world would you like to live in? What kind of world would you like to see? So be that world. The second quote, a person is as great as the dreams he or she dreams. And if you're petty, you will have petty dreams. If you are materialistic, you will dream of riches. So dream big. And by big here, I don't mean money. The third one, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. And this is too obvious to require any explanation, right? Obviously true. The last one, if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. And I believe it's Malcolm X's quote. And in the picture, there's another quote from Martin Luther King, and it says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And that's also spot on. So reflect on these quotes and share your thoughts with us. Discussion corner. Now, before you read the statements and take a position, let's look at the two pictures, paradise or oblivion. Well, these are two possibilities. We have the possibility of building a better world, which will be like paradise, or oblivion, we will just go extinct and vanish. Well, it's up to us. The second picture shows what it takes to bring about massive social change. And by the way, that powerful image is from the revolution in Sudan, which has been going on for the last 3 years. They are determined to build a new and better Sudan. Now let's read the statement and take a stand. A better world is a utopia. No, it's not a utopia. I disagree with that. Well, actually, it's a possibility. What I think is a utopia is the idea that we could go on like this, infinite economic growth in a finite world. I think that is utopian. We should come to terms with this world. No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't come to terms with injustice, inequality, poverty, violence. And in fact, with this attitude, we wouldn't have ended slavery, and the status of women wouldn't have also improved. There's only so much individuals can do. While it's true that change requires collective action, sustained collective action, I should say, individuals still can get involved in this collective action. They can be part of this struggle. Change is the only constant in life, obviously, yes. Things only change on the surface. It depends on that thing. We can't afford to be pessimistic. Yes, we can, because there's a lot at stake. What about you now, guys? Take a stand on these statements. Now to our exciting and hopefully enlightening talk, Ubuntu. Well, before you listen, think about these questions. What do you make of the two pictures? Take a good look at the two pictures. Which picture is more familiar to you? What do you know about Ubuntu? What do you know about winners take all attitude? And what story about who we are as human beings do these two pictures tell? Now listen to the talk and answer the questions. What's wrong with this world? To find out what's wrong with this world, let me tell you the story of Ubuntu. A Western anthropologist studying the habits and customs of an African tribe found himself surrounded by children most days. So he decided to play a little game with them. He managed to get candy from the nearest town and put it all in a decorated basket at the foot of a tree. Then he called the children and suggested that they play the game. When the anthropologist said, now, the children had to run to the tree, and the first one to get there could have all the candy to him or herself. So the children all lined up waiting for the signal. When the anthropologist said, now, all of the children took each other by the hand and ran together towards the tree. They all arrived at the same time, divided up the candy, sat down, and began to happily munch away. The anthropologist went over to them and asked why they had all run together when any one of them could have had the candy all to themselves. The children responded, Ubuntu, how could any one of us be happy if all the others were sad? Ubuntu is a philosophy of some African tribes that can be summed up as, I am what I am because of who we all are. This story embodies two different modes of being, Western and African. A mode of being is primarily expressed through the way we relate to ourselves, others, nature, and the world. So the way the Western anthropologists set up the game, win-lose situation, reveals that within the Western mode of being, the other is perceived to be separate from oneself, so much so that others can be a limit to my gains. Within this conception of the other, one can only succeed at the expense of the failure of others. What's worse, since happiness is defined by this dehumanizing form of being as accumulation of material gains, it can only be attained by making others miserable. Only the winner can take the whole basket, like game of Monopoly. On the other hand, the way African kids responded to the win-lose structure of the game reflects a mode of being in which the other is seen as inextricably bound up in oneself, so much so that others are affirmation of my being. Within this conception of the other, one cannot be happy when others are sad. What's more, happiness is defined by this humanizing form of being as acts of sharing. Ubuntu is our true human essence. Man's nature is so constituted that he can attain his own perfection only by working for the perfection for the good of his fellow men. Karl Marx. Unfortunately, the West has imposed their alienating and dehumanizing mode of being on the rest of the world through a long history of domination and colonization, sustained and perpetuated by militaristic, economic, cultural, and linguistic imperialism. In short, at the heart of what's wrong with this world is that the West has created a world after its own image, as the prescient Marx accurately predicted. If we want to regain our humanity, Ubuntu is a way to go. Grammar focus, future plans, how to talk about our hopes and dreams. I dream of a humane world. I hope to see poverty gone from this world. I want to help bring about change. I would like to take some actions. I'm going to participate in change. My dream is to help create better life for everyone. Humanity has not realized its dream of justice. His dream of seeing the end of racism hasn't come true yet. My ambition is to be happy by making others happy. My greatest aspiration in life is to see an end to unnecessary pain in this world. Now, complete the sentences below with a phrase from above. Well, this is the end of our lesson on what's wrong with this world and what it takes to build a better world, Ubuntu. And now, questions for reflection. Look at the two pictures first. Again, utopia and dystopia. Which one is more likely depends on our choice and on our action as well. So what have you learned from this video? Why is the world the way it is? What does it take to make the world a better place? What kind of difference are you making in the world? What are the alternatives to the current system? Well, capitalism has certainly brought us to the brink of total annihilation, because the world right now is facing two major existential threats, and I think you're familiar with them. The first one is global warming, and the second one is the ever imminent threat of nuclear war. Having said that, it's not all doom and gloom, as we can actually take action to change this. Right now, there's some sort of global backlash against the system. In other words, all is not lost with us human beings, and we can still rise to the challenge of creating a better world. See you next week.